it's going to be interesting to see the play styles going into game number 1 here. Just a little note on the other maps. Dry Arabia, Boldlands, so quite some open maps. Some cheesy ones or cheesier ones, Cliffside and Lakeside, but in general, a very standard map pool here. Nothing too crazy about it.
Yeah, and I love the start. We can't really get any mirror matchups, but this is as darn close as you could get it. We got JD versus French, and usually this is just one where we will see Royal Knight after Royal Knight after Royal Knight out on the field.
Well, game number 1 is ready to go. Beasty versus Wham, an all-time classic here in the winner's bracket of EGC Masters Winter. Here we go into game number 1. It is Himayama with Jeanne d'Arc facing off against the French.
Sheep already being brought back in. Wham in the color red as JD. Beasty in the color yellow as the French. And now we're going to see how these scout openings and the sheep gatherings going.
Indeed, a bit of a lag here, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully that's going to get fixed. But yeah, I was gonna tease you with some stats here because there are some very intriguing details about this matchup here. Bear with us, folks, for just a second while the tech stuff is fixing the lags. Should be all good. It's a little PowerPoint right now. Luckily, it's just Dark Age, so hopefully it's gonna get resolved in a second.
Yeah, we're seeing, you know, those typical openings. It's nothing too exciting right now. This is usually when we're having to fill the void with talk anyways. But, you know, hopefully by the time action's going on where we're seeing those Royal Knights come out, we'll have it all cleaned up and looking nice in the game.
Indeed, it's going to be an intense feudal age here. You know, both these players, they are exceptional when it comes to their Knight micro. And that's going to be a key element of this game going forward. Both of these civilizations are capable of making knights in feudal age. Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
I guess we're making up for all those lost frames now.
Yeah, we could just blame this on a Age of Empires 4. You know, he didn't pause and replay it like it used to be, or, you know, it fixes it all up again or something, you know.
Anyway, so what was I going to say? Knights. It's going to be a big thing here. I think we are good now. Yeah, we should be good now. Thanks a lot, everybody, for bearing with us. Should be good now on the frames. So, Night War in Feudal Age. A lot is going to come down to little details. I kind of feel like this takes us back to the very early days of Age of Empires 4, where you had so many French mirrors, French versus Rus matchups, and every single game we talked about the fact that it's going to come down to whoever is going to lose less villagers. When you have Knight versus Knight matchups in Feudal Age, you're almost guaranteed to lose villagers. It's just a matter of how many you lose and how many you kill in comparison.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one where you want to be able to protect your villagers at home, but you also have to be aggressive. So you see a lot of times where different raiding parties, 1, 2, 3 different knights get split apart, but outposts on the goal will be key. But the problem with that is there gets to be a point where if your knights get out of position, the group of knights can just go burn down that outpost and you lose 5 villagers very quick. So I always feel like these matchups come down to some of those outside food resources. Who's able to actually go out on the deer, or more importantly, like we all know now, professional scouts that deer back in. And so that's really one where, is it going to be an early investments into professional scouts? Maybe you sacrifice a few early Royal Knights to do so, but then you come on with a flurry.
Just looking at this matchup here for a brief moment while we still have this relative peace here in Dark Age. So these guys have played more than 20 sets against each other across all tournaments, and Beasty leads by a very confident margin, 15-6. So you would just go into the set saying, okay, Beasty is the favorite, but wait a minute. When you look at major events, S tiers and A tiers, Wham actually has the edge. In fact, I'm sorry, Beasty still has the edge 4-3, but the last time Beasty was able to win was June 3rd, 2023. The last 3 matchups in major events between these two were won by Wham. So it's actually a rather balanced matchup when you look at it from this perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, that's obviously one where if people are using some recency bias, they're definitely going to be leaning one way that most people I would say is not the favorite. But you know, that's one where time goes on, people improve and come along quite quickly. We're seeing those mills go down, so this is going to be the point where what are those early researches going to be out of the mill? Is it just early wheelbarrow, or is it more importantly going to be, you know, professional scouts? Maybe queue up a few of those. And sure enough, Beasty has queued up professional scouts as well as a knight in queue. Meanwhile, Wham is just now finishing his mill, but probably thinking the same here. And there it is. Sure enough, the mirror matchup is coming to fruition.
I feel like we're watching day one Age of Empires. French versus French, or something alike. French versus the French variant. Professional scouts and feudal age knights play. This is really day number one Age of Empires. And now, it really is going to come down to essentially the control of these small groups of units. Can you deny your opponent from picking up some carcasses? Can you potentially get away with some villager kills out here? Those are going to be the key details moving forward, because in terms of the build order, we are actually seeing an identical build from the two players.
Look at that little maneuver by Wham. Was able to dodge the scout around the tree line. And this is going to be a villager pickup, most likely. Night charge comes in. Quick auto after. Beasty. Oh! Wham doesn't fully commit for it. Once he keeps the knight alive and healthy, more important, and on the other side, he's the one distracted a little bit, and the one actually taking some damage. Good micro with the villager, jumps inside himself, but the JD, not sure if one ended up going down there. It looks like it did not.
I was just going to go back to that very moment where Wham pulled off the knight. I think in any other matchup, you commit and you get the villager kill. But Wham needs to be careful here. Same goes for Beasty. You take damage on your knights, that's going to be problematic when you face off against the opponent's knights here. In these knight v knight battles, the condition of your knights, the HP that they have, is going to be a big factor. So the players will need to be a lot more careful diving underneath town centers and committing against villagers, because even if you get a villager kill, if you lose most of the HP on a knight, that's going to be troublesome. Obviously, once you have chivalry, it's a different story, but initially, you're going to have to be very conscientious about the HP of your knights.
Yeah, good thing for Wham, though, he does have JD, so doesn't have to invest into chivalry as early. Will constantly be able to, not constantly, but occasionally be able to have that healing activation used on the knights as they get to low health. You really want to use it in, you know, one of those bigger engagements, healing up a lot of your knights. But for now, she's just passively healing on up. You can see she is in a vulnerable position, uses an AoE and stays alive just barely. Wham pushes away the Night Mass with his... Even though he's being outnumbered right now, both players also just slowly ferrying some deer home behind this.
Oh, what a micro from both sides, really. Beasty leveraged the fact that Jeanne d'Arc was a little exposed, and he actually landed a beautiful charge on Jeanne d'Arc, but Wham was able to pull her off just in time. Low Knight versus Knight micro here. Remember, JD does have that area damage, which is actually very good against clustered up knights like this, so for the time being, it's just a little back and forth. Here being ferried back home. One difference here is that Beasty is up to 4 scouts. Wham just now finished making the 3rd. So Beasty does have a bit of a head start when it comes to the scout numbers and ferrying in carcasses.
Yeah, and I think that's one where Wham is just trying to keep... I feel like this is always one where you want to keep your opponent on the back foot. You want to be the one being the aggressor, because if not, you slowly start having this idle time. Slowly, you know, have this way that your opponent's eking out the eco lead, and he's trying to deny some of that scouting, some of those deer faring as we speak, but at least keeps Beasty's Night Mass on his side of the map.
Let's not forget, in a matchup like this, it's crucial that the French do get a villager production bonus. So Beasty is up by 5 villagers as a consequence, pulls off the villagers from the gold in time, and actually sandwiches these knights really well. Wham needs to pull back. A lot of these knights are so badly beaten up.
Yeah, he splits off one of the knights trying to distract Beasty's mass, and it does at least make the group charge on over to the other side, so Wham should allow himself to pull the 2 low health knights back, get healed up eventually. Knight numbers still somewhat even. Wham still needs one more to come out to queue, and it will be 7-7.
Wham did go for a mining upgrade, by the way. It just goes to show how much both of these players will commit to feudal age warfare. You go for a mining upgrade here, it means that you need a lot of gold. Chivalry coming in for both of these players. So this is the stage where you will be able to start healing up your knights, and you can be a little bit more committed to picking off villagers, because even if you take a lot of damage, you can heal those knights back up. For now, it looks like Wham is going to play a defensive game, though. He needs to fall all the way back, and that means that Beasty is able to start picking up these more exposed deer packs.
Yeah, they both have kind of been gathering up the safe ones, gathering up the ones on his side, but now Beasty makes the move out for the ones in mid-map, and even making a move out for the ones on Wham's side. So if you're able to not only secure up some extra deer, but also deny your opponents, this is going to be a huge, huge benefit in that mid-game point, force an earlier food transition on Wham's side.
And now we're getting to the stage where you can start detaching knights from the main group. We're going to see smaller and smaller groups of knights roaming the map and looking for villagers to pick. Beasty is the one to start. This tower is not enough to garrison everybody in here. Remember, now you can heal your knights, so you can commit under the TC here. Nice little micro by Wham to just body block these knights out here. At the same time, Jean is a little exposed. Beasty is just going to ignore her, and now it's Wham launching the attack on Beasty's gold.
Yeah, just like Wham took a little bit of a raid, Beasty doing the same, but just able to garrison, move those villagers on back home, and still somehow it is 0 villager kills to 0 villager kills. I did see, I think a scout has gone down on either side so far.
It's remarkable. Destroyed value is 70 versus 70. Not a single, basically not a single unit was lost, except for that one scout on each side that you mentioned. Just goes to show how good the micro is. I'm saying that the first true kill of this game goes to Wham. Remember, I think this is a good point to mention that Beasty does have a couple of extra villagers because he gets the French villager production bonus. But at the same time, Jeanne d'Arc gets the discount on the knights with the consecration. And also, Wham gets the benefit of getting XP from kills for Jeanne d'Arc.
Yeah, exactly. Over the course of time, all of a sudden, if JD gets that level 3, it is a huge, huge upgrade. Wham actually moving out for a dock onto the mid-map and also cutting off Beasty's knights that were chasing off another. So 2 pickups now for Wham. Meanwhile, Beasty has not killed any unit other than that single scout. Circles around JD. JD does get a huge AoE, falls to the knight circle, but ultimately, I feel like that could have been worse. Those knights still taking a lot of damage over from Beasty's side and took that AoE swing. Will get healing on the way out, though. You can see Wham's trying to split his group, trying to cut some of those off, make the pathing back home that much harder.
Yeah, Wham is actually low on gold here. He's floating 1,000 food, but he's out of gold. Kind of the same goes for Beasty here. He's got a lot of food, not much gold going on. Difference is that Wham only has 1 knight in queue. Beasty has 5. Beasty is actually handcuffed in terms of production. He's got more resources than he can spend right now.
Yeah, up to 18 knights now. Wham, like you said, only a few more into queue. So Beasty was setting up a counterattack, but Wham, he knows better. He pulls back on away and goes back to another spot. 2 knights have fallen on Beasty's side, only 1 onto Wham's. But this is now when the game starts opening up. Knight masses start to split. Engagement happens. A few falling on either side. Beasty trying to pull back. Looks like Wham has the numbers, has the health here, and takes another successful fight and engagement.
Yeah, Beasty detached some of his knights. I think he wanted to just go for distraction. He's going castle. He was super heavy on gold, and he was piling up resources for castle. Wham might lose a villager to that wolf. That would actually be the first villager killed in this game, by the way.
So Beasty's going castle, but you also saw right as he was aging up and doing that, he ran out of his gold vein, and that's what I was just about to mention. So he's going up to castle, but now he's going to start lacking the knight production, and he's not going to have that huge gold influx to immediately queue up some of those necessary resources if Wham continues this aggression. Beasty, he does everything he can to protect that gold, and he forgets about the berry villagers. Huge raid coming in onto the French villagers. Splits off a few, goes over to the woodline as well. Beasty taking some damage onto the economy now, as well as losing some knights. Greedy castle play maybe not paying off here.
This is dangerous for Beasty. Look at his resources. He's going up at the Royal Institute. He actually hit it all the way at the back. I don't think Wham knows that he's aging up just yet. He's going to get the notification now, and Wham is probably going to look for an engagement. Here's the thing, though. Veterancy is a reasonably quick tech for Beasty to get. Royal Bloodlines isn't. He went with the Royal Institute, but Royal Bloodlines takes forever to research. And Wham is not going to engage. Instead, he's trying to catch up in Castle Age timing. He's playing a dangerous game now because Beasty is going to have the Veterancy when he reaches Wham's base, and Wham will not.
Yeah, he's running across that mid-map. Wham will have full vision of this. Doc gives him the knowledge, gives him the information he needs, and gives him a little bit of timing as well. Beasty says, no, I'm not going to allow free eco on this mid-map. You can see the upgrade has come through. Wham does not want to take this fight. He just wants to stall Royal Institute about 80% of the way up. It's being built on the front side, though. Beasty can force this, but he doesn't want to. Royal Bloodlines is on the way. Wants to wait for a key engagement here. Wham runs out of the gold as well. This is the timing I thought was going to be a struggle for Beasty, but instead, he is punishing Wham on the exact same thing on the other side.
Wham needs Veterancy, then he can fight. Can't Hold Settles is coming in for Beasty. Royal Bloodlines is still halfway done. If you're Wham, you have to take this fight before Royal Bloodlines comes in for Beasty. You will not catch up. He's trying to take this fight, engages just a little before the upgrade comes in, and this is not a good fight for Wham so far.
Not at all, and the villagers this whole time have just been standing and watching, trying to get onto the gold. No knights in queue. Meanwhile, Beasty, his queue is back to full. Royal Bloodlines is almost finished. This timing counter attack was perfect. It felt like Wham was playing the game so well, but the castle timing has come through, and Royal Bloodlines is in queue for Wham as well. Must have dropped a market behind this.
It's going to be too late, though. Beasty is going to commit with Royal Bloodlines. Wham doesn't have the tech, but he needs to fight. He cannot win this fight here.
JD trying to help out with the AoE. He knows that he's pulling back, but loses so many knights. Look at the destroyed value now. Beasty all of a sudden up 2,000, and that will keep climbing. Will be a full wipe. I don't think Wham will be alive much longer. Already down 15 economy now. JD falls yet again, and Beasty's Night Mass is as healthy as could be. Takes game number 1, even though it looked like a good start for Wham.
We talked about this since the beginning of the game. A French versus French matchup is a story of error margins. It's all about missing lines on plots like this. No, it's all about small mistakes on either side. Those are the things that will decide the outcome of games here. And when you look at Wham, I think the big decision point for Wham was trying to chase Beasty into Castle. Beasty aged up. He had the head start in grabbing all these techs, and Wham decided, instead of trying to just punish Beasty for that early age up, he decided to age up himself, and he was playing catch up all along. And as you mentioned, just when that started happening, he ran out of gold inside his base, and Beasty was able to punish that. He had the tech advantage, and he just decided, okay, if you're not fighting me, I'm just going to deny your gold. And just look at that snowball at the very end. That difference in the Castle Age timing is what made the difference here.
Yeah, the economy count's always going to be a bait because the French is going to be ahead just due to their passive villager production lead. But JD slowly is able to consecrate a bunch of buildings, consecrate, all those stables, the royal, and just make all those royal knights come out that much cheaper. But overall, Beasty, he saw the timing that he almost got punished for. He had to move off of his gold. Wham actually saw it for a little bit, denied it for just a second, but Beasty was able to resecure it, went over to the other side, and did not ever allow Wham to get back onto gold. Just didn't allow any more knight production, basically. Delayed the Royal Bloodlines, delayed the Castle Age, and just played the perfect timing that he needed.
Well, that puts Beasty up 1-0 here, and this, again, was a game of very tiny error margins. For the first 8 or so minutes, we had basically no casualties on either side, and this was really the first moment where Wham was able to leverage his position on the map. I would say he got a couple of villager kills, and then as Beasty was aging up, he had the tech advantage, and it was just too late for Wham now. It's a tricky choice. I don't think Wham had a lot of options, but trying to play catch-up was just not a thing that worked out for him.
Yeah, and this is the thing that's so hard. Obviously, we have God vision. We can see everything going on. So we're like, why didn't he do this? He should have done this. And it's like, well, the key here is scouting and knowledge. He should, like, if he had known that BC was aging up as early as he would have probably cut 1 or 2 nights earlier, been able to have his own timing a little bit quicker and not been punished as hard as he should. But that's just one where lack of knowledge, lack of information is really what was the detriment to Wham. It wasn't like it was a skill issue or anything like that. But fortunately for him, game number 1 is all that it was. Now we can already see the matchup. Game number 2, we're going to go ahead and get both of the quote-unquote water maps out of the way, even though Himeyama doesn't really count as one at all.
Yeah. Himeyama being called a water map is a slight exaggeration, I feel. Lakeside, it's a little bit more watery, but from what we've seen, it's really not one of those water maps where, okay, we are non-stop water fighting. There is emphasis on land, and frankly, the most significant thing you get from that pond, if you secure it, is the ability to transport units to the back of the enemy base, which actually we've seen quite a lot. Japanese for Beasty and the Order of the Dragon for Wham here, 2 civilizations that we do not commonly see on this map.
Yeah, and you mentioned transporting units across. Usually it's not just a unit. A lot of times if you secure up the water, you'll transfer over a villager, build over a dock on the other side, because with Lakeside, it's one deep sea fish right in that kind of tucked over corner next to the ridgeline mountain on the water, and so you're able to go secure your opponent's deep sea fish. Doesn't seem like much, but it definitely has a massive impact over the course of a game.
It does, but again, in comparison to other water maps, Lakeside actually has very, very little fish to harvest. So at the end of the day, this is not a, okay, I secured a pond and I have an infinite source of food type of a setup. It's really more along the lines of having a map element that is not just pure land, and it allows you to get a little extra eco in terms of fishing, but it's also a portion of the map that's not possible to wall. So again, opportunities later on to land are definitely there. Remaining maps will be Dry Arabia, Baldland, and Cliffside. Just looking at the civilizations real quick, Beastie does have the Mongols, the English, and the Malians still available, and the Delhi as well, of course. And on the other side, Byzantines, Ayyubids, Abbasids, and Ottomans. So a lot of berry civilizations on the side of Wham.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those with the berry civilizations have definitely grown their favor over the course of time, especially some previous patches with Abbasid. They really just they found their sweet spot in this meta where people, utilizing the mobility of the camels, utilizing the timing, the eco boom that Abba can have, and same thing kind of goes for Ayyubids, but more of a timing and less of that macro civilization. But meanwhile, on BC side, you mentioned a couple of his very, Delhi comes into the picture as that aggressive, moving out on the map, take the map control, take the berries as well, but also just go up to castle and end the game there.
Well, let's see if he can end the game in a castle. We head into game number 2 on a Lakeside. Here we have Beastie versus Wham. Beastie up 1-0 with the color yellow as the Japanese. And on the other side, Wham is in command of the Order of the Dragon, playing as the color red.
And as we are not surprised at all, seeing those villagers move out to the water, I think we need a little bit of the pause and playback again here going on. But we'll get that cleaned up again. We're just allowing the little skip of the dark age, the skip of the boring timing,
It's the calm before the storm, okay? The suspense. I just want to highlight that Wham does have a little fishing boat, or is it a demo? It's definitely a boat here coming into this map for his little statue for the TC.
Yeah, I think it is just the boat. Having a demo up there, I'm not sure if they have one, but now you're giving the devs some ideas over here as maybe a new challenge to make. Kill a certain amount of ships with demos, and you get a nice old statue at your TC.
All right, we should be able to get back on track here, folks. Tech Stuff is fixing the frames, and we should be good to go in just a second. Bear with us for just a moment. Okay, there we go. We are getting our frames back. So, dock expansion coming up here for Wham. This is how he's kicking things off. And on the other side, there is no dock coming in from Beasty. Or is he trying to go towards the middle? I don't think so. Actually, there's a little yellow dot to the north.
I think,
so,
yeah, no, there's a dock
yeah.
on out there. I think he's just a little bit delayed on the fishing boat, which sounds surprising being Japan, and now it's not that delayed. It just was in queue all the way up. So fishing boat's going to start being produced, and this is really where Japan, they love to mass out a ton of fishing boats because of how cheap they are, but also they like to make a few, cut production, and just use the little bit of extra eco, the cheapness of those fishing boats to vault themselves up to the next stage just that much quicker than their opponents.
Now, here's the question. If you're playing with Japanese on this map, do you go Koka Township and try to play with early Shinobi? Or are you just going to say, okay, I'm going to play mid-late game and I'm going to leverage the fact that I'm getting a bunch of extra farms from the Kura storehouse?
The thing about the Shinobi is you don't have that benefit of being able to immediately go over to your opponent's dock and deny any production going out unless they move to that mid-map control. I still think Shinobi are a great kind of timing to force a reaction from your opponent, to force resources on out. Yes, the Kura storehouse gives you some of that eco bonus over the course of time. You don't have to build a lumber camp. You can tuck it up next to the wood line, get some farms over time. But Beasty, I don't think food's going to be his problem early on. I really think getting some Shinobi out on the field would be a huge benefit for him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think when it comes to Shinobi, you can shut down that dock from Wham. And remember, Shinobi do a decent amount of damage on villagers, and you're looking at dragon villagers on the other side. If you can get one or two Shinobi to surprise these vills, there is so much value in killing even just one or two of those villagers out there.
Exactly, and both players now have started the age ups, and it will not be Shinobi, it will be the Kura storehouse play. So Beasty says, yeah, you were correct. Shinobi, he's played this map more than I have. I've only watched it. I have not played it myself. So he says, no, they don't play out as good as it seems. You can't really deny the docks, take advantage of that water, take advantage of that timing. And I feel like Shinobi are really a timing play. If you don't get something with them early on, they just fall off so hard.
Yeah, Wham is going to be the first to Feudal Age. He will be able to get some combat ships out to harass Beasty here. But just going back to that Kura storehouse, Beasty placed it such that it's very close to a lot of wood lines. A lot of the farm spots are blocked. So once the farms spawned, he's actually going to get a really nice wood trickle from this. It's definitely more of a wood-focused Kura storehouse and less of a farm-focused one.
Yeah, allows him to, save the wood on the lumber camp, immediately get on over to that. Obviously, farms will be the things generating, but still saves himself resources over time. Meanwhile, Wham obviously has that chapel, tucked up next to the wood line, next to the gold vein. All of his villagers, able to drop off next to that. So essentially the same exact idea for both landmarks, just be a great drop-off location for all those villagers.
First combat ship is coming out here for Wham. He opts to go for a galley, no surprise on that front. Galley is just so much better when it comes to hunting these fishing boats. The distance to cover is pretty substantial though, so if Beasty wants to get himself a combat ship out to defend, he can actually do this. But Beasty is just going straight castle here, it appears. He's actually still on gold. He's not queuing up anything. And at the same time, Wham went for some stone being gathered. I presume it is going to be for some weapon emplacements. Maybe just emplacements on the dock in general. Beasty himself is just going to go for the emplacements. One convenient thing about the shore fish and the deep fish on this map is that it's very close to your dock. So you can just do what Beasty is doing right now. Garrison your ships, garrison your fishing boats, and when the enemy ships are gone, you can just go back fishing, or worst case scenario, your boats will just be idled.
And it looks like both players might have the same idea. Emplacements on either side. Wham's the one that's at least denying the fishing for the time being, though. So might be able to catch up in resources just a little bit. But emplacements on either side. And now resources being saved up for Castle Age.
Wham is trying to do the same thing here. He is going to be a little bit on the back foot, though. One thing to highlight, however, is what's going to happen when you get up to Castle Age. First of all, as you see, Wham needs to invest into farms. for Beasty, that is where the Kura storehouse comes into play. Getting a bunch of extra farms for free is actually a huge boost to Beasty. And then Mounted Samurai will just absolutely obliterate the HRE Knights. So I think one of the big questions for Wham is how he's going to deal with the inevitable Mounted Samurai push that Beasty is going to put together.
Yeah, the big difference here, Wham has at least gotten Wheelbarrow. He's getting a Springled Ship as well, so he wants to at least deny this water. He might be a little bit delayed to castle as we see Beasty. Floating Gate on the way, 10 villagers on it. Wham delaying his up a little bit. He spent resources, like you said, into those farms. He's also made a galley. He's also made a Springled Ship now on the way, but has some knowledge, has some information here, and will not be too far behind. Beasty not even halfway up to castle yet, and Wham on the way, but we saw how that worked out last game. The big difference here is Beasty doesn't have 20 knights out on the field to immediately be upgraded.
Well, he could get a lot of Mounted Samurai out very quickly with the Yorishiro. Wham opts to go for the Burgrave Palace here. Now, he could go Ragnitz, but keep in mind, Beasty is likely going to have a head start going into Castle Age, and he's going to have the Shinto Priest out immediately. So, I guess to a certain extent, this Burgrave Palace choice is more about the fact that he doesn't anticipate to secure 3 or more relics here. At the same time, one thing I forgot is that Wham is playing OOTD and not standard HRE, so he is going to have the Gilded Knights, which might actually have a decent matchup against all these Mounted Samurai.
Yeah, and obviously that's one where people underestimate running into the spears of the Order of the Dragon as well. So 1-2 spears go a lot longer way against the Mounted Samurai. Although obviously they will have that nice old shield that they get right off the bat.
Yeah, the deflective armor is immensely valuable against Order of the Dragon spears. Those guys are absolutely insane. They get something like plus 46 bonus damage against cavalry.
Ooh.
One hit and you lose half of your HP. So having that first hit negated is just so valuable here for Beasty. Wham was actually committing to a second warship out there, by the way. He went for a Hawk, so he really intends to secure this pawn for himself. And so far, Beasty didn't really bother making any combat ships here. It looks like he might just concede the water.
Yeah, it looks like he is going to concede the water. Wham brought a couple fishing boats over to heal up as well. This is where the spears come into play. Brace already goes down. For some reason, the other spear decided to run all the way around the gold vein instead of probably being able to connect another 2 hits. That knight or the Mounted Samurai might have gone down if not for that pathing.
The Mounted Samurai did get staggered, though, so you see, it's just one Mounted Samurai and it's already half HP. And it looks like Wham is going to have a decent start here to Castle Age, moving out to the Spearman, going for the relics, and things seem to be going reasonably well for him. Oftentimes, when you face off against the Japanese Mounted Samurai, we see players crumble in early Castle. It's just so difficult to deal with these guys, but so far the Gilded Spearmen have been doing this job well.
And we said that Wham, he might be conceding the relics, might not be able to get, 3 or so. Thought that Beasty might be able to get more, but I think the play was Burgrave, so he gets the map control and is able to secure up more of these relics for himself, as we already see him bringing some back home.
He has a relic all the way at the back, so that's going to be safe. And if he can take this one back home, he's at least going to have 2, which I think against the Japanese and the Mounted Samurai opening, it's kind of a win.
Yeah, not only that, has been able to deny the water on the other side. Spears deterring the big group of Mounted Samurai back towards Beasty's base. So whenever you can make the raiding unit, that mobile unit, go back home, it's always feeling good to Wham, yet again finding himself in a pretty solid position. But we said the same last game. Onimusha transition for Beasty. That perfect unit to just start sniping out spears, sniping out mounted units, sniping out any armored units. They're just that great mounted range unit to kite.
Wham is going super heavy on the spears, and he needs to be careful because Onimusha will tear these guys apart from a range. It's a bit of a weird matchup because if the spearmen can close distance, they will obliterate the Onimusha. Those are very fragile cavalry units, which means that spears will get bonus damage against them. But again, right now, Wham just has spearmen, and that is basically it. So if he doesn't start making anything against the Onimusha, Beasty could just go for a large clump and again kite away from these spears. Looks like Wham is piling up a lot of resources, though I wonder what his plan is here.
Yeah,
Is he
unit
thinking
control.
Imperial, perhaps?
Potentially, unit control so key for Beasty here with the composition he has. He's starting to make some of those Yuumi archers as well, it seems. So Beasty's wanting to stay in castle, stay aggressive. Meanwhile, you just mentioned Wham starting to bank up some resources. He's got a lot of resources starting to pile and actually starting to transition archers himself. Great raid on his wood line, though. 5 villagers, and those are Order of the Dragon villagers that just fell.
That's a catastrophic loss here for Wham. This would have been bad even for any civilization, frankly, but when you're the Order of the Dragon, your villagers have an amplified significance. And I was looking at that wood line just before the cavalry arrived, and I was like, wait a minute, those villagers are so far off. They're far away from a tower. It would be difficult to protect those villagers, and fair enough, Beasty leveraged that huge swing here, because now Beasty does have a comfortable-ish eco lead.
Yeah, Wham at least is feeling good as far as the relic play goes. He has gotten 3 relics secured for himself, just picking up that backside one. Beasty going for yet another raid. Arrow slit outpost is all that really can help snipe down the Onimusha. Spears, though, get a brace onto one of the mounted samurais. One falls, but so does a spear.
Yeah, keep in mind, these are very expensive units, so there is merit in healing these spearmen with the monks. And at the same time, looks like Beasty wants to capture both sacred sites and say, okay, if you're not coming out of your base, I will just force you out of it. Starts the sacred site victory condition countdown. He does have a huge mobility advantage, but I don't think he sees the spearmen here.
Wham able to connect onto a few of those units. Looks like another mounted samurai, and Onimusha goes down. So villagers were falling for Wham, but now he's trying to make up for that with some good military trades. He's got triple relic for himself. Blacksmith just now being dropped, but Beasty, he's ahead of him on that step. Already has ranged armor, already has ranged damage.
Here's the thing, if you're Wham. Now you're getting Gilded Archers out. The Gilded Archers will obliterate all the Onimusha and all the Yuumi as well that are coming out for Beasty. Beasty is making Yuumi now. I don't see a single Bannerman, though, and that means that these Yuumi are just kind of underwhelming. Looks like Beasty wants to push into this, though. He's making a ram as we speak. Army count on paper is better for Wham, but keep in mind that these OOTD units count as 2. This is a risky move from Wham. He's venturing into the stealth forest without vision. He doesn't have a single scout here. He's playing with fire.
Trying to deny sacred site on the other side with a unit, but in reality, we see what's coming. Beasty, he dropped a ram. He is ready to put some pressure on, has a big mass of Yuumi archers building up. And meanwhile, Wham just now sprinkling a few minute arms into the mix, which will prove to perform greatly if he can snipe down those 5 Onimusha very quickly.
Wham is behind on blacksmith upgrades here. Beasty has been prioritizing those quite a bit. But as you said, men at arms, that's going to be a really good front line for this force. Again, both these players are lacking scouts, so they are somewhat vision deprived. They need to be careful pushing into the forest, but we're reaching the stage where these Onimusha become somewhat obsolete. The archers will pick them off from a distance, and there's not a single armored unit out there for Wham. Onimusha do get bonus damage against armored units, and there is just none here for Wham. Beasty does have the mobility advantage, though. Wham has the walls up, and I don't think Beasty knows about it. I think Wham is picking up momentum here.
Yeah, and the key, you mentioned Wham didn't have any armored units. Now he does, though. He's transitioning into those men-at-arms as the Onimusha number has thinned out. Engagement looks like it's starting to play. Yuumi archers moving forward. Villager masses even move forward. Prelates here to help, here to heal. And the Spears are happy to be the front line, take the engagement, and get the support from the back line. Wham, though, doesn't look like he has enough here. The numbers, they're always deceiving with the Order of the Dragon. The ranged units deciding to just run away, deciding to leave that front line mass alone.
This is a terrible fight for Wham over here. He's losing a lot of super expensive units. And part of this was the fact that the spearmen weren't controlled perfectly. A lot of the spearmen were fighting the Yuumi. He didn't get that gigantic bonus damage against the enemy cavalry. He started with like a dozen or so gilded spearmen, yet all the cavalry from Beasty is still alive. And remember, Wham is on a countdown here. 7.5 minutes until Beasty gets a victory from the sacred sites. And now Wham is reset to essentially step number 1. He lost his advantage, and now Beasty's starting to say, okay, I just want to fight. I have the sacred sites. What if I start fortifying these and I just force your hand?
Yeah, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's just says, all right, you have to come out of your base. You're going to have to come attack me. And this is a very defensive game, Age of Empires 4. Very easy to start reinforcing location with outposts, getting some outpost upgrades, sprinkled emplacements, things like that. That also allows him to get some extra vision into these stealth forests here, which gives him that extra advantage. But the big downfall for Wham there is I felt like he even just left his front line out to dry a little bit earlier. The fight, yeah, it might not have been going his way, but I felt like the trades could have been at least a lot closer if he didn't just turn tail and run with his 15, 20 range mass pretty early on. Didn't kite at all and just ran.
Yeah, I think he was concerned that he was just going to lose the game. If he loses that mass, he loses the game. So I felt like he just accepted the fact that he lost that battle and fell back. What was a little puzzling is that he could have waited just a little more. He had gilded crossbows coming out. He had a couple of gilded men-at-arms coming out. And as you said, there weren't very many Onimusha out there. If you have 4 or 5 more gilded men-at-arms and a couple of gilded crossbows against those mounted samurai, that fight could have been so much better for Wham. Now it's 5.5 minutes. I think we're getting to the stage where Wham is going to have one shot at decapping these sacred sites. And it's going to get increasingly difficult. I just don't see him being able to do it right now. Because, again, his losses were massive and it takes time for him to regroup.
Yeah, and now this is where Beasty, he wants to just keep the pressure on with the mobile units. Meanwhile, he keeps the slower, the more immobile units back near the sacred sites, ready to just stay safe, defend, and have the mounted samurai come and, you know, have that nice flanking maneuver if Wham decides to move out from his walls. But I feel like this is one of those times where Wham, his only chance is waiting for the last, like, 2 minutes of the sacred site and doing one big final push then.
I love how Beasty is using the cavalry still. Offense is the best defense, as the saying goes. As long as you just run around, you know that Wham's army is a little slower. So if you just keep probing these walls, Wham is going to have to be busy chasing you. And every second that he's chasing you, he is essentially delayed moving out of his base and decapping the sacred sites.
Crossbow number for Wham, though, is starting to build up, so those mounted samurai are not going to be as good as a front line as they were before when it was just mainly an archer mass, just mainly that, you know, spear-ish mass. There's 2 spears left, but the crossbow, they can start sniping those down from range.
One thing that's a little worrisome for Beasty is that he's very heavy on the Yumi. And sure enough, Yumi is great in huge numbers. Beasty does have 46 of them, but this is really a quality versus quantity matchup. Against, let's say, 15, 20 gilded archers, 46 Yumi might not be enough, especially when you supplement these with a dozen or so men-at-arms. I think the worrisome detail is that Beasty doesn't have a direct answer to men-at-arms. The best he has are a mounted samurai. Now, this could be dangerous. Again, no vision for Wham. He's running into the stealth forest kind of blind. And if he loses this army, it's game over. He's got 3.5 minutes left to go. Beasty knows about the position of this army. Wham is oblivious of that flank from the cavalry.
And look at all the outposts. Look at all the vision that Beasty's able to provide himself during this Wham. He knows he needs some vision, knows he needs his own reinforcements. You saw an outline of an outpost, and we'll see if that does end up going up. He's moving forward, trying to get onto a point where the sacred site denies, starting to tick on down. But Beasty, he's ready to defend this here. Fight is going to happen, and oh my gosh, is there a lot of units here from Beasty. Wham. Crossbows are not turning tail and running. Archers are not turning tail and running. But are there enough units here this time to actually defend the location? Frontline is absolutely just getting demolished. Wham's trying to kite, trying to move on back, but now it's just the Yumis attacking the crossbows, attacking the range, and BC is going to look to clean this up and take a 2-0 lead on this series.
It's a true matchup of quality versus quantity, and quantity wins here. Yumi are being buffed by the Bannerman, by the way, and that is not something that needs to be or should be overlooked. These Yumi just flooded all the gilded archers. Beasty started with like 50 of them. He's down to 30. The majority stayed alive, and now it's just a cleanup operation. 3 minutes left to go. Really, when the dust settles, you look at that initial engagement between Beasty and Wham, and that's where you say, okay, that was it. That must have been it. In this game, Beasty never took a bad fight. Wham did, and that seems to be a difference between the two players in this game.
Yeah, losing those 5 villagers on the wood line too, you got to think that,
True.
that's another 10, 15 units probably over the course of this game that Wham could have out, and that is definitely a huge difference maker over the course of time. But, that's where BC able to just slowly eke out that lead, make those differences. You can see the resources gathered. Overall wasn't as tilted as you'd still expect, but still 3,000 extra for BC over the course of that game.
Yeah, just looking at that fight at about 15 minutes, that is where things started to swing in Beasty's favor. From that point onwards, he always had the military lead, and then this final fight was essentially a cleanup operation. 2-0 win here for Beasty so far. It is match point now for him. Wham, if he loses, he's going to fall down to the lower bracket and face potential elimination. And for Beasty, he's going to be able to punch a ticket for himself for tomorrow and for the semifinals of the winner's bracket if he wins the next game.
Yeah, we just saw that first big villager loss there. Wham able to pick up a few units after that here and there, but it just wasn't enough of a difference. And this is that first big engagement we're talking about. The numbers, it looks good for Wham with the bar, but remember, Order the Dragon units, they count as double. And so that is one where engagement's starting to happen. Spears getting kited down. Mounted Samurai able to dive back in. And this is the point where the archers, they're about to just turn and run. Just completely decide to not attack anything. I guess Wham, he's thinking he's about to get circled, which looking at it, there is still a ton of Mounted Samurai left, but no kiting at all, no units being taken down on the backside, just all unit losses.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at this final fight over here, sure, you have some premium troops if you're Wham, but just looking at this whole image, the massive numbers advantage that Beasty has is huge. And those towers were equipped with Spring Golden placement. You had healing as well from the Shinto priest for Beasty. He knew fully well that Wham is going to have to go, and he was just waiting it out.
Yep.
2-0 lead now for Beasty. We are heading into a match point game. It is going to be on a cliffside, and Wham is going to bring out the Byzantines. On the other side, a civilization that I honestly don't remember when I saw in Beasty's hands the last time. Mongols. I honestly don't recall any recent game where Beasty played Mongols, but it might just be my memory.
I mean, even still, Mongols is a near and dear civilization. There was a time where everyone played Mongols. Everyone had to play Mongols, so it's not like it's a civ that you don't... it does have a different play style than every other civ, but once you learn how to play it, you don't forget it. They're a very, very fun and interesting civilization. I'm wondering, Tower Rush maybe deny some of that berry placement on getting that early olive oil growth going, and might not have an optimal winery positioning.
Yeah, I just looked at the logs here real quick, although chat was quicker. Indeed, Beasty did play a Mongols versus Demu, but that was the only time he played Mongols in this tournament. He actually lost that game. That was the only game he lost in the Beasty versus Demu series. It was a French versus Mongol matchup on Hill and Dale, and Demu won that. This time around, it's a fundamentally different setup, though. Byzantines on the other side from Wham. Remember, Wham won his group, by the way. He is the champion of Group D. Anatan was second place, whereas Beasty came in as the second place player in Group C. So it's actually going to be a setup where if Beasty wins, the second place in their respective group takes out the winner of a different group.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one where, obviously you never know how the seeding, how it all ends up playing out. Hindsight's always 2020. It's like one of those where sometimes you wish you could have lost a couple games, gotten matched up against someone else. But either way, these have been close games, even though the score is 2-0. And now we're jumping into game number 3. Wham does not want to get sent down to the loser's bracket. He wants to fight up for this top spot. He's playing the Byzantines in the color red, and in the north, Beasty's playing the Mongols in the color yellow.
Mongols versus Byzantines here. Wham did play Byzantines against Muhodo in the opening round of the group stage. It was against the Ayyubids, and he did win. At the same time, Beasty did lose the only Mongols game he played in this tournament so far. It was against the French on Hill and Dale. But we haven't really seen this particular matchup a lot, so I'm curious how Beasty is going to approach this, and I'm wondering if he's going to put some early pressure on Wham here. If he can get some early harassment going, he could throw off these Byzantine builds quite well.
Yeah, and I already see a production building being built next to his Uvu, I believe. I'm assuming Barracks is on the way, and indeed, Barracks is on the way. And the thing about Cliffside, it's a pretty short rush distance across to your opponent. So your spears, your villager, it's able to get there that much quicker. And looking at the spot, it's like, you know, BC has the option, deny the gold, deny the berries, and my choice, my thought process would definitely be delay the olive oil gathering, delay that first income coming on in. So put this outpost right there smack onto the berries.
Get scouted immediately by Wham.
Yeah.
Oh. Just clubbing it down casually, but most importantly for Wham, he knows about this villager coming in, so he's got to be able to prepare. It's just a matter of, again, if Beasty can start dropping towers here, if he can land it on the berries, he could make that Grand Winery become so much less effective.
And sure enough, that does look like that is where Beasty is wanting to go. Wham had vision of it. He followed it with the scout for a good little bit. Obviously, Byzantines, they have the ability to, move under their cistern, activate the cistern for the Akratoy defense, and then try to defend up that way. I'm wondering if it's going to be utilized maybe on the spears here, but Beasty is just trying to drop a sneaky outpost onto the berries.
Interesting move here. You don't really see this very often where the Mongol player splits the spearman from the towering villager, but this time around, that is exactly what's going to happen here. And the torches being thrown towards the mining camp means that you cannot just delete it now. Villager falls here for Wham, and this is the perfect start for Beasty. Wham deletes the mining camp, but that means Beasty gets the bounty.
I mean, this is just one where we're absolutely falling apart right there early on here for Wham. Maybe he's a little bit tilted from the game before, maybe just a little bit off, forgetting. And now he pulls the villagers late to see if there's the outpost on the berries, distracted by the spears, and the outpost on the berries goes up. And I believe Wham will still be able to get maybe 1 or 2 berries before an upgrade comes through, but Beasty, he's already gathering the gold. He's ready to go up himself. He's already going to go ahead and put the spears into that outpost. And Wham, the Grand Winery goes up, but he is not feeling good about the start. Mongols is up in economy, and that should never happen. Usually they're already down a villager or so based off of their placement of their TC early on. But instead, with that villager kill, he's up now.
Range coming in here from Wham to try and deal with this, but okay, you get the range out, you start picking off those spearmen. Once the tower is complete, you need to find a way to destroy it. You could always try pulling villagers, but it could get tricky, especially considering that a lot of your villagers are beaten up. You see, Beasty is not that far behind in terms of aging up. By the time the first couple of archers come out, Beasty is going to have some troops on the field as well.
And Wham knows this. He knows the timing is key. He's getting textiles now. He's going to go for a huge villager pull. I'd assume he probably has 10 villagers out on those berries, and probably, yep, there we go. He's got a bunch of villagers out on those berries. Textiles has finished. Archer is there as well. Oh my gosh! And he goes over to the next set of berries and already gets a huge bit of damage onto those villagers. He's going for the pull. He needs to micro these villagers back as they get low health. Textiles has come through, though. Archer gets focused down first. One archer falls. Villager now starting to get focused down. Wham pulls back the wrong villager. One of the villagers falls. Another villager about to fall.
Wham pulled the wrong villagers twice, I think. He's trying to pull
2 villagers down. 3 villagers down during this pull, even with textiles. Now spears pop out. Villagers have to run. And every single spear is now up. Wham is down 5 villagers at the 5-minute mark. This is just...
Oh my. It must have been a misclick by Wham. He pulled...
Multiple misclicks by Wham over here.
He had... Twice in a row, he pulled a full HP villager, and the low HP one kept torching the tower. It must have been him trying to get the low HP villager back, but it must have been a misclick, and it costs him 2 villagers, and then he ends up losing the 3rd one as well. 4 villager casualties by the 6-minute mark.
And look at, I mean, Beasty, he's just still keeping up the aggression. There's so many low health villagers still. Spears are here. The Khan's still just poking and prodding on those berries, not allowing easy gathering at all. And just wait another 30 seconds or so. Keshiks are on the way.
Oh man, this is looking grim. You're looking at a setup where the berries are being harassed. The villagers, you didn't just lose a bunch of villagers. You had to sacrifice one for tech stalls. You had to idle these villagers a lot to make this tower disappear. And now, you have absolutely nothing against the Kashik here. The Spearmen are still harassing you. First batch of Kashik coming in, and Beasty's also getting archers. So it's not just a, okay, you're bringing in Kashik and I do have Spearmen. Beasty has archers, so he can take out the Limitani as well. This is looking so bad for Wham right now.
Yeah, Wham is just going to be tucked in the little corner of his base. He's going to be on sheep. He's going to be on his wood line, and that is it. Well, that only lasts so long, and meanwhile, Beasty, he has a stronger economy behind this, which feels weird saying this against Byzantines. But one thing I will say is if any civilization can do this from a villager deficit, Byzantines is probably one of the top 3 that come to mind. They are just that civ that is known to still perform down in economy, and let's see if Wham can come back here. Let's see if Wham can defy the odds.
Remember, this is a double elimination bracket, so even if Wham loses, he is going to have a second chance, but he is going to be playing for his tournament life later today. Whereas if Beasty wins, he is going to be done for the day, and he's going to move on to the next round. And right now, it really seems like Beasty is dominating this series. Just a quick note here, by the way. As I mentioned, Beasty has a 4-3 lead historically in major tournaments against Wham, but he hasn't won a series against Wham since June 3rd, 2023. The last time Beasty swept Wham in a major 1v1 tournament was all the way back in 2022. So, yeah, oh, and look at Beasty. He's now grabbing the deer stones, trying to deploy it right next to the enemy base.
Oh,
actually isn't able to,
to get it down. Yeah, Limitane arrives in time, so Beasty needs to pull that back. Moves forward, arrives to an outpost, but looks like, was that another villager maybe that just fell next to that outpost onto the berries?
Love the tower, but it's just a little late at this point. And normally you don't pull your deer stones right next to the enemy base, but I feel like Beasty knows that he can win this game right here. He's going to start torching the cistern.
And another villager!
Oh my. I feel like every single time we see a villager fall, this is turning more and more into a matter of when and not a who.
Yeah, it's just slowly. It's the snowball effect. It starts small and just rolls and gets bigger and bigger and scarier, and this is where now it's an ego lead. Well, and now it's an army lead, but it's not only a numbers lead with the army, it's a value lead as well. There's tons of Keshik into the grouping from Beasty. Meanwhile, Wham, he's all onto the Limitani and archers. There's a few javelin throwers that he didn't have to pay for from the olive oil, but still just does not prove to be enough. Villagers jumping back inside the outpost yet again. More idle time being caused. Archer's going to try to kite back on away, and overall looked like a 1-for-1-ish trade. Maybe not even an archer falling from Beasty.
You know, javelin throwers will be very handy here. It allows you to snipe off these archers from a long range, but you don't want to overcommit if you're Wham. This is a decent composition, though. Javelin throwers, highly resistant against arrow fire. Limitani with shield wall, they're resistant as well. So this is going to be a difficult composition for Beasty to beat. I love how he's using the map to his advantage, though. If Wham is stuck in his base, just go out, take the board, take the deer packs. That's exactly what he's doing.
Yep, and just not... Oh, look at how many berries are still up around the Grand Winery. That shows how good of an opening this is for Beasty. Usually these berries are gone in the blink of an eye. They're needing to move out to the next set of berries. They're dropping more olive groves around it early. Yeah, there's a few olive groves, but it's not because he ran out of the berries early and wants to get the olive oil. It's because that's all he can do. He can't move out of his base right now.
If you're Beasty, if you cannot break this defense, you'll just go Costa and pick up the relics, but I think he still wants to just finish this game right here. Again, needs to be a little careful because javelin throwers can easily pick these archers off, and there might be a second batch on the way at some point. But the fact that Wham has to go for olive groves it's a bad sign. Again, the deficit is just too big to overcome. Beasty would need to take a terrible fight here to have a shot for Wham, basically.
Yeah, you mentioned those javelin throwers. There's only 3, and you can't forget the Beasty also has that extra bit of range with the Khan Hunter on his ranged units too. So has been able to continually kite, continually taking efficient trades here and there, and hasn't really been losing as many archers as you'd expect during these trades against javelin throwers, against an outpost as well. Blacksmith upgrades also in Beasty's favor, as Wham hasn't really been able to stay secure onto that gold, hasn't really been able to make that sacrifice for a Blacksmith for those upgrades. He's just now moved out to it, but yet another outpost has to be invested. So just so many resources that Wham is dumping into trying to get other resources.
Yeah, and at the same time, Beasty, he is leveraging the fact that he doesn't need to commit full in to this aggression. He's grabbing so many eco-techs in here because he's like, okay, I'm able to pin my opponent inside his base with this army. I can spend my excess resources on upgrades and at the same time still be successful when it comes to harassing these berries. So even if Wham is able to hold this position, Beasty's advantage is going to be so big because of that tech difference between the two.
Yeah, exactly that. And I love how Beasty, he's not overcommitting here. He's just going from one side, going back to the other, moving back to the other, constantly just causing idle time and just eking out this lead further and further and further until he is ready to attack, ready to fully commit. And when is that? Rams are coming into play. I'm sure it's going to be soon. And the best thing about Mongols when Rams start coming out is they really pay for themselves more than other civilizations. They take down a few of the buildings. They start taking down the olive groves. Well, that's bringing an income in for these Mongols.
I think the primary target is going to be the gold mine plus this cistern right here. And this is a difficult position for Wham to defend. It's open field. You have the mobility of these Keshiks to just flank around and hit the back line. And Wham moved out to the berries all the way to the south, and Beasty had his number. He knew fully well what was going on, and Wham is just going to have to pull back.
And look, Wham's trying to move out to the berries to the east as well. I think Beasty already has a unit sitting there ready, if not multiple, over on those east side berries. It dies, but he at least has knowledge of it, has the information, and Wham knows. He's like, all right, I have to commit to that. Beasty just needs to send a unit or two back over there and will cause more damage, more idle time, but I don't think Wham even cares about that at this point. He has to worry about this army at the front of his base, Ram knocking down the cistern, water level about to go down. And look at Beasty's queue. He's got spears, he's got Keshiks, he's got archers. Meanwhile, Wham, 1 archer, 1 spear.
It's looking really grim now for Wham. I think he's hoping for a miracle to happen, but it seems inevitable for Beasty to take this series. He is actually piling up resources for Castle Age now. He's got twice the army as his opponent, and he's ready to go to the next stage soon.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, we just saw it. He split off a few of the Keshiks to those bottom side berries. Wham didn't even have the mill finish. He had to build an outpost first and hasn't been able to gather from those yet. Beasty is just everywhere right now, not allowing Wham to breathe. He wants to take this one 3-0. He wants to just move along, not have to worry about any more games in this series.
And that's exactly it. Wham is trying to sneak out to little resource packs, but it's just impossible. He actually snuck all the way out to the far right, but Beasty already is skirmishing in that area with Keshiks as well. Army numbers still looking much, much better for Beasty. He's got a huge tech lead as well. There's just nowhere to go for Wham now.
I mean, I feel like you say that now. I feel like there hasn't been anywhere for Wham to go for the past 10 minutes of this game. It's just been Beasty started with the pressure, kept the pressure on, and never let up off the gas. More olive groves trying to be built. He's trying to mass repair the archery range with 15, 20 villagers. That's half his economy on an archery range.
And there it is. Beasty seals the deal. 3-0 dominant performance. Not something that's very common in the matchup of these two players in here, but especially this final game, this was a Beasty show all over. From the very beginning when he killed villagers, he started having a villager lead at minute 3 from all those from all that Dark Age pressure, but really it came down to that catastrophic cleanup of the tower from Wham, where he lost 5 villagers in total. From there on out, it was just near impossible to recover economically.
Yeah, it just has to be, you know, we'll just say Wham's not a morning person. He woke up a little too early. He wasn't feeling it. It's like, you know, he had to have an extra Red Bull or two, and he didn't have it this morning. So he just need to wake up, get a little more energized. But good thing for him is he can throw this series out the drain. He still has the losers bracket to come out. He is not fully out of it yet. Just forget this series, have the memory of a goldfish, and just move along.
Well, it started like this. Wham, staying on that gold mine a little too long, ends up losing the villager, but this is really well it fell apart. He's trying to pull back the injured villagers, but some of them didn't really respond. Arguably, it's very difficult to pull these villagers back here. Clicking these units, especially when they're clustered up like that, is difficult, but it doesn't change the fact that the wrong villagers were pulled back, and that cost him quite a few villagers here.
And so, yeah, this is where now we've already kind of seen the spot where the game was already tilted a little bit, and Beasty just continued to battle either side around this wood line, just constantly used it to poke and prod. And this was also Wham's main wood line he was gathering from. So doesn't make your life easy when you're a villager, doesn't make your life easy when you're the Byzantine player, always having to watch multiple different spots.
Well, a dominant 3-0 win here for Beasty against Wham, but this wasn't the only 3-0 series that we had today. Marine Lord also took out Vortex 3-0, which means that tomorrow we will be getting an absolute banger. Beasty versus Marine Lord, but I do hear that Beasty also wants to share his thoughts about this series. Let's hear what the winner of this series has to say.
Big congratulations, Beasty. Very clean and fast series. So anything to kind of say after to summarize the series here for yourself?
Thank you. I mean, my group stage was pretty shaky. Like, I kind of felt the nerves because I feel like I've been practicing and I was like, oh, I gotta win kind of thing in the group stage. So it was a bit shaky, but today I think I just played my own game. I played what I practiced, and yeah, pretty happy that I just played well. You know, I think that's what matters to me the most. Going out while playing really bad sucks quite a bit.
Yeah. So first game, it was obviously as close to a mirror matchup as you could get. We had JD versus French. So usually that's a matchup that can really go either way. You look away from your wood line for 1 second, and all of a sudden it's game over. And it felt like that situation almost happened for a second. Your berries got raided. You took a little bit of damage, but all of a sudden you pulled the castle play. Is that really one where did you feel some pressure, like you needed to do something, or was castle always the plan?
So that matchup is a bit weird. It is a mirror with a slight difference where JD will actually have a lot more food remaining because the knights will cost less, and French has more workers, which is good, but you also eat up your resources faster. So in a way, our economy is the same because he spends less, but I eat my resource faster. So I actually ran out of gold first, I ran out of food first. But so French should have more units, but the longer the game goes, it kind of becomes better and better for JD, especially if she can hit level 3. So, you know, when I aged up and I kept checking how many knights he has, how many knights I have, and stuff like that, and when I saw we're equal amount of knights, but I'm also aging up, I just knew that I just have to fight with the upgrades and it should be good.
Yeah, and you kind of called exactly that. We saw your gold ran out, and I was like, oh no, this is actually a chance that Wham might pressure the gold, and then instead, you got that little bit of breathing room. You did the exact same thing, closed out game number 1 very clean. Game number 2 was water, albeit not the main type of water maps, only 1 deep sea fish, which you ended up giving up the water. Was, again, you know, you just kind of went for docking placements, no military ships, and right into castle with that timing with the mounted samurai play. So with water on that map, are you just kind of less worried about it compared to others, since there's only one deep sea fish, and kind of force your opponent to waste resources there?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I tried different like situations. I tried skipping water completely. I tried like just doing the arrow slits, and I tried fighting. And I feel like if you do go for a fight, but it doesn't really go down fast, then you're kind of like committed, but then the opponent is aging up and you're like trying to kill the dock, and then you kill the dock, but then the opponent is already ahead in, castle timing. So it can get kind of pretty weird. But some civs, I would say, go for like a dock kill, and some just kind of camp. Like if you have passive stone, you can just throw down arrow slits and, just chill a bit, and that's it, just give up.
Yeah, and then obviously we saw the dominant game number 3. The early start, really, you got the early Vil kill on the goal, but more importantly, the outpost just forced so much damage, so much idle time, and villager kills as well. Is that one where you obviously can weigh going castle yourself, just playing all in feudal? Is that one where you just said, I've done more than enough damage, I'm just going to end this now and here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like probably a lot of players expect me to play like, delayed or slow, or go castle in those kind of situations, but I think I've changed up my style a bit, and I think committing in that case, like you said, after killing the vills and stuff, if I just do everything correctly, he just won't have the army. And when he picked Cliffside, I knew he's probably going to pick Byzantine because it's one of his best civs and his favorite civs, so I just figured, I'll pick Mongol. I didn't even plan to pick Mongol, it was just the last civ. So I was like, I'll just pick Mongol, and if I lose with it, like, I still have Mali and Delhi after for the other 2 games. So, and then Mongol can also be pretty good against Biz sometimes, right? So it kind of worked out, I guess.
Yeah, obviously very, very clean series. Big congrats again. So we'll be seeing you moving along in the winners bracket. Any tie-in together thoughts to before we let you go and start to cast the next series?
No. I mean, I'm excited to play against Marine Lord. I haven't played him in a long time. We played with some similar, like, practice partners, but I haven't played them, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I'll just ask Boltune for some tips, and that's it.
There you go. Well, we'll be ready to watch it. We'll be ready to cast that, and good luck moving forward here.
Thank you.